This is another episode of Standup Comedy, your host and MC, celebrating 40-plus years on the fringe of show business. Stories, interviews, and comedy sets from the famous and not so famous. Here's your host and MC, Scott Edwards.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this week's show. We got another tremendous interview coming up for you. This is a longtime friend, terrific comic, very successful road comic, and, well, we should just jump into it. Ladies and gentlemen, from Southern California, it's Don Friesen. Woo! Don, it's so great to have you on the show.
Thank you, Scott. Long time.
Yeah, well, we have not talked recently, but actually you're one of the acts that I've used for some special event bookings in the last 20 years as opposed to the first 20 years of my comedy career. So we've stayed in better contact than most, but it's great to hear your voice. And doing this podcast, I mean, it's been a whole lot of fun connecting with you and other peers from the comedy industry, and we have so much to talk about. To kick things off, I know that you're originally from Fresno, right?
That is correct.
Did you do any comedy in Fresno? It's not really a hub for entertainment.
No, I actually was not a comedian when I lived there. I was just, I grew up there, and I did, there was a comedy club called the Comedy Store? The Athenian Comedy Store, yeah, in downtown. And I actually got a fake ID so I could see comedy when I was 20 years old.
See, most people are getting fake IDs to get booze, but you wanted to break into a comedy club. That's different.
Yeah.
Well, then your first experience with entertainment had to be when you were at USC.
Yes, I was a business major, and I was a junior-ish, and I was just burnt out on business. I was selling commercial real estate at the time and going to school. And
wow, got started.
I was going, yeah.
You got started young in business,
right? And I was kind of disillusioned by the whole thing. And then this subject for another podcast. But I was actually going through a bankruptcy as a business student, and I thought, well, maybe this isn't my thing.
the signs were up there. God was giving you a path.
Right. So I decided to stretch out. I had one more year of financial aid eligibility, and I had gone through the ringer with creditors, and I just tried to do too much, and I was just stressed out. And I thought, I'm going to take an extra bonus year, and enjoy school. Really have the student experience. I'll worry about being broke afterwards.
Well, for our podcast listeners, USC is the University of Southern California. So this isn't some small college. It's one of the big ones on the West Coast.
Yeah, very expensive. And I borrowed a lot. That's a whole other story, but just paid off my loans a few years ago. But
that's sad.
Yeah. So I was, so suddenly I had some extra, I didn't have to, stick with the agenda. I had all kinds of electives I could take. And I decided, hey, I've always wanted to try improv. It scares me, but it was available. I took an improv class and just immediately just fell in love with it, and started an improv troupe there. And that got it going.
Wow. Now, we should explain to the audience that don't know you as well as I do. You're kind of a tall, lanky guy, and then you took your hair a little bit taller. You've always had that kind of 2 or 3 inch straight up hairdo that made you a little bit unique, not crazy, didn't color it or anything. But knowing you and how physical you can be, I bet you really did well in improv.
Yeah, improv was a blast. And I just loved it. And it scared the hell out of me. I had stage fright, pretty bad, throughout the years, and was able to overcome it just through sheer repetition. But, I found out a few years ago that the troupe that I started is still going at USC, and
wow, that's incredible.
Successful.
That's
I mean, they're
a great
way
compliment
more
to what you
successful
did.
than I ever was. Yeah,
Well,
no,
I wouldn't say that, man. You've been very successful. Very few comics have. Now, what year was this? You were a junior at USC.
I would say 1990,
So
89, 90.
So you've had, 2 or 3 decades as a professional road comic, and a lot of people could never survive that or make a living and be as successful as you. And you've had other successes that we're going to talk about. But the fact that you were nervous, which is important for people out in my audience to hear, that everybody has a little frightened or in trepidation about getting on stage. And the only way to beat that is to keep getting on stage. And to start that improv troupe at USC, and the fact that it's still going today is quite a tribute to you.
Oh, well, I'm very proud of that. I don't take responsibility for the continuity, because I thought when I left it was over. I wasn't the person who continued the legacy or whatever. But somebody in the troupe kept it going, because at the time I was the founder and director, and I was kind of like I was never the biggest talent in the group, but I was definitely the driving force.
Yeah, the power behind the movement.
Right.
What's the name of that improv group?
It's Cometus Interruptus.
Really? That's a great name.
Yeah, which I didn't come up with either, but that's what we. Yeah, it was a great name. And they've had they've had famous alums and several SNL alums, and
went through that improv.
They've definitely become much more famous than I ever was, starting it out. So. Yeah.
Well, but still,
I'm not even sure I could. If I auditioned for them, I'm not even sure I could get it.
Well, I don't know.
Really good.
I don't know about that, but I think that you still get the crown for being the guy that started and perpetuated the entertainment form on a campus that's business oriented. I mean, that's a very serious college, and to get something like that going was not only, I'm sure, helpful to get you through your last year of school, but it's been helpful apparently for the last 3 decades to other students. Now, when did you come to work for me at Laughs Unlimited? I've had 1,000 comics come through my club. You and I are old friends, but I don't remember how it started.
Okay, so I went on the road in January of '95, and I want to say it was probably that first year, at the latest, the second year. So it was either '95 or '96 that we connected. I want to say it's probably '96. Maybe late '96.
Well, I know that it was a real advantage to me as a club booker to have somebody of your quality, and people will hear it when they hear the set. By the way, later in this show, we're going to showcase a set you did for me from my 20th anniversary CD, and you made that because of the quality of entertainment you always brought to the club. But for the audience, let me just explain that Don is tremendously funny, very clean, but it's high energy entertainment. I mean, you really give it all for the audience.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I had a lot of really fun shows at your club, I have to say. I specifically remember developing the airline pilot bit in the time that I was at your club.
I remember that bit. It's very funny. And that was one of the ones you worked on at the club. That's great to hear.
Yeah, I remember it was about 2 or 3 minutes long, and it was killing. And then I just wanted to do more with it, and I ended up breaking it down and trying a bunch of different things and stretching it out. And it was it kept sputtering in the middle, but I just remember workshopping it at your club over a couple passes through.
Well,
and I spent a year and a half on that bit, and it ended up though at the end being 6 or 7 minutes long, and the longest version. So it was a crazy bit, but very physical.
Well, I think it's great to point out that even though Laughs Unlimited was an A room and we had some of the biggest names in entertainment come through, it was also like the university level in the career process. In other words, a lot of comics out of LA would never try a new bit at the Comedy Store or at the Improv because you never know who's in the audience. You could come to Sacramento and work on material. I mean, I remember Gary Shandling would actually take notes up on stage and try bits because he wanted to see if there was an audience for it, and then he would decide whether to work it up into something or not. So for you to take what is now a big chunk of your act and develop it at my club, I'll take a little pride in that. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Well, we did have good crowds. In fact, one of the things I wanted to ask you about is you came out with a tremendous DVD CD set called Inexplicable. And ladies and gentlemen, it's still available on Don's website, donfriesen.com. I think you could probably find it. But your CD Inexplicable was recorded live in Sacramento at the Crest Theater, because I was there. And it came out really well. But I was curious, how did you choose, being from Fresno originally, where I'm sure you have a core audience and all your work in Southern California, how did you choose Sacramento to record your first CD?
Well, actually, there were a couple things. One was, well, first of all, you were one of the guys who, really got behind me very early on. And you allowed me to come through and headline your club at least twice a year, but sometimes 3 times in a year. And so I was able to build a following in Sacramento that was my biggest following in the country at that early point in my career.
Yay!
Yeah. So I had a good, solid following. And then I had a really big boost from media. Not only did I go through and do all of your radio shows and morning shows and all that on a regular basis, so they all knew me, but specifically Paul and Phil.
Y92,
right?
Paul and Phil.
Yeah. They were big fans and big supporters. So I approached them when I was considering taping a special and self-producing, and they got on board. They were helping me promote it. I did their Christmas special, which was a big blowout thing. I did that once or twice for them, and their fan base knew me. And I don't think I could have ever filled that 900-seat theater without, without the combination of their backing it. In fact, Paul did a little cameo opening. He wasn't on the DVD, but he just introduced it, and so yeah, they were great. So
that was fun. He brought out his old sign for the blind, the Braille road signs, which he hadn't done in years. It was hilarious. So just to
totally forgot.
Yeah, just to catch the audience up. So there's an interview earlier in my podcast with Paul and Phil, but they were integral to the growth. Not only did I give them a start on stage before they became radio stars, and they ended up on TV on the Discovery Channel and won 2 Emmys. So they've had a great career, and it all started as a stage act at Laughs Unlimited. But what I wanted to go back to was, and I've explained this before, that I used to bring comics that I really thought had a future in, like you said, 2 or 3 or even 4 times a year, because it built an audience within Laughs Unlimited where I could count on the entertainment level. The audience knew what they were going to get. They would tell their friends, "Ooh, I saw this guy earlier in the year. We got to go see him." And that perpetuated and built the audience. And I think it's great that on the CD and DVD Inexplicable, you were able to take advantage of that audience growth and put it together with the marketing from Y92. And like you said, pack out a 900-seat theater. And by the way, it was so fun to be involved in that. And we were there that night. It was a high energy, really fun comedy concert.
The energy was electric. Yeah. And Kermit Apio was the perfect opener too. I mean, I was so set up by the time I got on stage. It was just a really, beautiful night.
It was special to be a part of. Kermit is also interviewed earlier on the podcast, folks. You should go check out his interview and sets. He's been featured many times, but a great, clean comic that is always, not only was he a good headliner for Laughs Unlimited, but a great opening act for you because he's funny and totally clean, so it sets the audience up.
Oh yeah, and he was doing me a favor. I mean, he didn't need to open for me. It was a friend favor at a friend price, and he knew he was completely selfless in terms of set it up the way you would want to be set up. So,
well, now you've been doing comedy now for 3 decades. Do you remember one of your first jokes or bits, or have you long trashed those?
Well, I've long trashed them, but I still remember. I'm kind of embarrassed to say them sometimes because they're not great. But I think the earliest joke I remember was I did Jay Leno had this the Cool Ranch flavored Doritos commercials, right?
Yeah, I remember that.
And he had a Cool Ranch flavored comedy competition that was going through colleges.
Oh, I didn't know that.
He was touring colleges throughout the country. And I was doing improv, and stand-up scared me even more than improv, way more, because I didn't have a theme partner. So I did this. I did the first, my first comedy experience was at a bar in the student union at USC in this competition. And one of the only original jokes I did, because I didn't even know at that time that you couldn't just do jokes that you had heard from other comics. I had no idea. And so I was trying to remember, I put together a 5-minute set of, things that I remember that were funny from comedy shows I'd seen. I mean, it's horrible, looking back.
But that's how a lot of people start.
Yeah. So my original joke that I remember was, hey folks, Jay Leno here for new Cool Ranch flavored condom. Pump all you want, kids. We'll make more.
Cool Ranch condoms?
Kids, we'll make more. Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah. Well, that's still original material.
Well, that was the only joke, but everything else was like, it was, and I did horrible, and I was so nervous, I couldn't breathe, and it was just coming back from that experience and doing it a second time was probably the gutsiest thing I've ever done in comedy. But
well, it's interesting.
Was really bad.
It's interesting that you explain that because so many people, especially back in those days, thought, oh man, it's so easy to get rich and famous. You just get on stage and you tell a few jokes and boom, you'll be discovered. And I've told the story a dozen times, but it was hard work. You had to really go after it every day. Every night was a different audience. You had to be a writer. You had to be a performer. And I've tried to explain to the audience, you had to also be an actor, because what makes a comic an actor is that every time he goes on stage to do a set, he has to act like it's the first time he just thought about it. In other words, it's almost like it's right. Oh, wow, I just thought of this, when really he's probably been doing it for months, right?
Right.
And that's
absolutely.
That's where the acting
comes in.
You have to
be in the moment.
Exactly. Sure. And I think it's interesting that you had that kind of what you felt like difficult start, and we should take it to your career to the next level. So, ladies and gentlemen, get ready for this. Don Friesen won the San Francisco Comedy Competition, one of the biggest in the country, in 1999, and then came back with a different set and won it again in 2005. And as far as I know, you're the only comic to win this prestigious comedy competition twice. Is that right?
That is correct.
Don, that's a huge feather in your cap.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's these are fun things that throughout your career you have a couple of benchmarks. I look back, I think like, oh, whatever. But when I think about it, it's like, yeah, that was great. That's something I'll always remember.
Well, it really puts you on the map. I mean, for the audience that may not know, for a number of years, in San Francisco, there was the San Francisco Comedy Competition, and guys would work clubs all over Northern California and get whittled down to like the top 10 or 20. And then there was huge prizes. There was great press. And we're not talking slackers. There were really great comics involved, many of which went on to fame and fortune. And to not only win that, which would be great just once, to be the only guy in history to win it twice. I mean, that's amazing, Don, and a real tribute to your performance and writing skills.
Well, thank you.
That now you don't have the trophies and the money still showcased in a piece of plastic somewhere?
The money's been long spent. There's actually not really even a trophy. It's just something on the resume. It's something. It's great because people still bring it up, and it's been so long ago that it will always be something special to me. But people sometimes still like throw that into my intro. I'm like, that's not what, I mean, it's great, but it's I think the expiration on that being part of my stage intro is long since passed.
Well, and I'm going to disagree with you, Don, as a producer. Now, I'm not a comic. I'm a producer. Yeah. I've done stage shows, concerts, and television, and lots of radio. From a production point of view, it's important to showcase what are special achievements. So whether it's acting, comedy, or even singers, to mention an award or a completion of something as important as the San Francisco Comedy Competition. I mean, quite frankly, Don, that lasts forever. That's an accolade that you and only you can say. Now, let's treat the audience. Do you remember some of the entertainers that were in the 99 or 2005 competition?
Yeah. So you probably wouldn't know most of them, but James B. Connolly, you know my buddy James.
Yep.
Jim Connolly.
Good guy. Amazing act.
Yeah. James Inman. I don't know if you remember Inman?
Yep.
He was a Seattle guy.
Well, it's not on the tip of your tongue, but there was some good comics. Maybe we should take it from another direction. Yeah. I know previous winners were people like Robin Williams. I mean, there were some
Dana Carvey.
Yeah, big names that have won that competition that we all know. Oh, did Ellen win that?
Yeah, I believe so.
Oh, that's interesting. She worked for me as a feature act.
I don't know if she. Well, you know what? She may have been a finalist. I don't know for sure if she won, but I think she won one year.
Well, the point was I wanted to bring up.
I used to know all this stuff.
No, that's okay. It's been a long time. I'm sorry to bring it up, but it is so important for people and you to realize that to win that competition twice with the legacy of people that have won it previously, like Carvey and Robin Williams and Ellen and whoever else. I mean, if I Googled it, you'd probably see a bunch of names but I still think it's worthy to mention, and you should not be shy about it because that's quite an achievement. Now, maybe what we should do then is talk about something a little more recent. I know that in 2012, didn't you do a Showtime special? I
did. Ask your mom.
My mom wouldn't know.
Yeah.
So the title of the show was Ask Your Mom.
Ask Your Mom. Yeah. Yes, it is.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, I'm very proud. I'm very proud of that. That was a great
for Showtime
concert.
For Showtime to get behind you. Again, they had to recognize the talent. And I know I'm reiterating, and I apologize to you and the audience, but we're talking about a comic, you, Don, that had worked the road for decades. Every month you were out doing colleges and clubs and your own concerts. It takes that kind of work and that kind of dedication to get to the point and also be funny and a good writer for somebody like Showtime to say, hey, we're willing to produce and show your special. I mean, that's really great.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, no, I was very excited. It's hard because if you don't get the right management, if you're not the flavor of the month pretty early on in your career, it's hard to prove to them that you should still get the big breaks, especially if there's really nothing sexy about my trajectory. I mean, I've hit every rung of the ladder and just kept going.
But I think that's impressive, and one of the reasons why I'm trying to bring up the point that this didn't come easily to you. You really earned it. I mean, yeah, we both know people in our business that got seen or got that big break and ended up being celebrities. I mean,
right.
You trudged through and made a career, and there's a lot of people I've tried to explain to my audience. I can list a name of comics, Kevin Nealon, Dana Carvey, Jay Leno, Seinfeld, you can go on that started at my club and they're now famous, and you say their name and people know them. But there are a lot of, there's not a lot, but there's a cherished few that, like you, made a great career, never got famous, never got rich, but you've had a full life. You entertained thousands, if not millions of people. And, I'm thinking of like Milt Abel, Steve Bruner, Bruce Baum. I mean, there's a lot of people that are really, really funny, really have that gift for the art form of stand-up and comedy.
Right.
And Don Friesen is on that list.
Well, thank you. I was shooting for I was shooting for National Treasure, so I came up a little short. But,
well,
maybe or household name, or maybe like regional staple, I guess.
It's so
pick
funny.
Of the week. If I get a sandwich named after me, I'll be happy at this point. Yeah.
Well, you know what? I'll see if I can arrange that right away. It's so funny you said National Treasure, because that's something you would never expect any comic to get. But I just interviewed Yakov Smirnoff, and I think it's coming up later on my podcast. But Yakov actually was named a National Treasure by President Ronald Reagan. And
wow.
And he was, of course, he was thrilled.
Which nation?
Exactly. Well, he, he did so much during the fall of the Russian oligarch. When Reagan said that, it really meant something. And when you bring it up as like, well, that's what I was shooting for, it is reachable. You just didn't try hard enough.
No. Maybe I got to go to Russia.
Yeah, you might end up being
my country.
Yeah, right. You'll be the top dog over there.
Yeah, learn to speak Russian.
Oh, well, that's really great to know that you had goals and that you've met a lot of them, and there's still more ahead of you. In fact, sure. I know that besides your work on stage for colleges and live stages and your Showtime special, but you've done a lot of work recently on radio.
Oh, like Sirius XM?
Yeah.
Is that what you're alluding to? Yeah.
Doesn't that count?
No. I just want to make sure I understood. Well, it sounds like a lot of work, but they're just playing my recordings over and over and over, which is nice for me because it pays well, and it's a good, steady, good, solid income. Help me buy a house. That's for sure.
Well, to explain it to the audience, Don is so clean and so funny and so original. He is a featured act on the 5 o'clock funnies, and that has been heard and reheard hundreds of times through Sirius Radio. And I think that, again, to be chosen to be one of those acts, I know you're not the only one, but you're one that's consistently been on there, is another tribute to your material.
Yeah, in fact, I would say Inexplicable and Ask Your Mom are the two that have played the most, but Inexplicable has made me more money on the radio than any other thing that I've ever recorded. So,
well, and that was,
they still play it. I still get this is from 2006, so we're 14 years ago, and it's still amazing.
Yeah, and just
it helps me make a living.
Right, and just to track it, Inexplicable was the concert you did live in Sacramento at the Crest Theater.
Right.
So to have that have life still all these years later, is amazing. And it shows how comedy, when done correctly, is evergreen. In other words, if you're not dirty and you're not too political and you're not talking about current events, but you're talking about just life. And in your case, we should have explained this earlier, but your material is a lot about family and raising kids and being married and traveling, because you were a professional. You traveled all over the country.
Right.
And these are all things that I think the audience, whether it's on a Showtime special or on a comedy club stage, can relate to.
Right. I mean, my act is, I've always thought of my act as a satire of my life. And my life is, a lot about, has been about being married and raising kids. And, so that's going to be reflected in my act. But it's just a satire of my life and how my interactions with modern daily life, society, technology, a lot of technology stuff in there. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's great.
It's kind of like a sketch comedy. My style is sketch comedy melted into stand-up, because I do, I'm mostly doing characters and their interactions from my life and switching back and forth between myself and whoever I'm, in the situation with.
Well, I think that's interesting, because you're taking what you learned doing improv back at USC when you were a junior in college, and you've morphed it into a really successful professional stand-up act. And I think it's great that you could grow and utilize your talents that way. Now, we've talked about the Showtime special in 2012, and you're still on the radio in the 5 o'clock funnies. What have you been working on, or what's coming up in the next year or so for you, Don? Is there any more comedy for you?
Well, yes. People probably don't have a time attached to this podcast, but let's just say we're talking in the hopefully near the end of the COVID era, hopefully. And I was a year ago, I was getting ready to tape my next hour special, and had the theater all picked out, and we were talking about the deposit and running through the tech specs and everything. I was probably about a week away from putting the hard money down, and COVID hit, and so it's thrown everything into flux. But I'm hoping audiences are able to assemble shortly. And,
they're going to be desperate to get out.
Pick it back up.
Yeah, they're going to, people are just so tired of being cooped up. They're going to explode. So we could think that maybe, and hopefully before the end of 2021, you're going to have another live stage concert, and you're going to record it for posterity and get it out and market it.
Yes. But now I was self-producing, and it was a big budget. So I have a little, modestly, I have quite a bit less of a budget to spend on it now. That
have you picked a title for it? Something people can look for?
It very well may change. The tentative title is Lesson Learned.
I'm sorry, say that again.
The tentative title is Lesson Learned.
Oh, Lesson Learned. Okay. So podcast audience, you want a chance, go to Don Friesen's website. You can still get his first CD and DVD, Inexplicable, which is so funny. The 5 o'clock funnies is still airing it. But coming up in the near future, we hope, we'll keep an eye out for another show. What city are you going to produce that in?
Well, I was set to tape it in Glendale at the Alex Theater, but I'm not sure now. It probably will be in Los Angeles.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, keep an eye out. There's going to be a live performance you're not going to want to miss. And if you do miss it, hopefully by the end of the year, there'll be a new CD out called Lesson Learned by the very funny Don Friesen. Hey, Don, it's been so great to catch up and have this chat with you. You've been so successful. You were one of Laughs Unlimited's favorite headliners. We worked together on some special events after my Laughs years. Got to work with you on your concert at the Crest Theater. It's really been a great friendship, and thank you for doing this podcast.
Oh, you're welcome. And by the way, I had no idea you had such a great radio voice. I would have never guessed. Wow.
Well, I did Amazing. Some radio in my early days, but it's good to see it's still there. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's been a great interview by Don Friesen, but I'm sure you're curious, what do we keep bragging about? Let's hear some of his comedy. So coming up right now is a set that I used on my 20th anniversary CD that features what I think is one of the best in the business. So stay tuned for that. Don, thanks for doing this again, and we'll talk soon. Ladies and gentlemen, here's some great comedy material by Don Friesen. Hey, thanks, Don.
Sure, thank you.
Feel like an idiot, you know. I've been watching TV, all these 10, 10, 10 commercials. Like, I don't get it, you know. Every time they add more numbers, they bring out John Lithgow to explain it. Dial 10-321. Okay. No, dial 10-10-323-211-3211. And then 1. And then the number. It's just that simple. Take the sum of the first 3 digits, divide by 7, round up to the nearest whole integer. If that total is a 10 or 11, double down unless the dealer's showing a face card. Cell phones now, I don't know what to do with these things. My wife tries to call me. She's like, well, can you call me from your car? I cannot call you from my car. I cannot call you from afar. I cannot call you from a tree. I cannot call you after 3. It's like I'm talking in a can. I need a better calling plan. I'm just an idiot, you know? At least they've got books for me now. These Idiot's Guides, you know. I got a new computer. My friend said, just get the complete Idiot's Guide to Windows. I was like, okay, the Idiot's Guide. He said, no, the complete Idiot's Guide. Okay, fine, you know. I should have been insulted. I was actually relieved that they had it, you know. Idiot's Guide, sounds promising. All right. You know, so then I'm driving down there. I start thinking, well, what if I get the Idiot's Guide and I still don't get it? Well, I got to take it back. That's embarrassing. Well, I thought I was an idiot, but apparently I've got a lot of work to do. One-way ticket on the Wuss Express. You take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife. All aboard. Wuss, wuss. Shh. Wuzza, 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 wuzza. Wuzza, 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 wuzza. Wuzza. If you look out to your right, you'll see a man apologizing for something he didn't even do. It's like a reflex, you know? Sometimes I'm alone in the room, it just pops out. Sorry. She's off in the kitchen for what? Just in general. Whoos, whoos. Since I can't shop with her, I turn into a 7-year-old. My knees get weak.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Stand-Up Comedy, your host and MC. For information on the show, merchandise, and our sponsors, or to send comments to Scott, visit our website at www.standupyourhostandmc.com. Look for more episodes soon and enjoy the world of stand-up comedy. Visit a comedy showroom near you.